How long would it take for grocery store shelves to empty? How long before gas stations run dry? How long before ATMs stop working? How long before police stop responding to calls? How long before people stop showing up to work? Most people believe society would collapse slowly. Others believe it would happen overnight. Both assumptions miss what really happens. Some parts of society can unravel in hours. Other parts can hold longer than most expect. So how fast would society really collapse? Welcome to Prepper's Paradigm, your channel dedicated to practical prepping and disaster preparedness. As always, I use a computer-generated voice because my own is difficult to understand due to an injury. Today, we're looking at a question that sits in the back of many people's minds. How fast would society really collapse? Not in a disaster movie, not in a worst-case fantasy, but in the real world, based on how modern systems actually operate. Modern life feels stable. Stores stay stocked. Utilities function. Deliveries arrive on time. Most people assume that stability would continue for weeks or even months during a serious crisis. That confidence depends on systems that run on tight timing, thin margins, and constant participation. When one layer fails, strain shifts to the next. Collapse does not happen in a single dramatic moment. It moves through society in stages. In this video, we're going to examine those stages. We'll look at consumer behavior, supply chains, financial systems, institutional strain, and the psychological tipping point that turns disruption into breakdown. By the end, you'll understand which parts of society fail first, which ones hold longer, and what that timeline means for your own preparedness. Because the speed of collapse does not just depend on the event. It depends on whether people keep participating in the system. Modern society feels solid. Lights turn on when you flip a switch. Water runs when you open the tap. Grocery stores restock overnight. Fuel arrives before stations run empty. That consistency creates confidence. Most people assume that stability comes from deep reserves and strong margins. In reality, modern systems prioritize efficiency over surplus. Most grocery stores carry only a few days' worth of inventory. Warehouses rely on constant trucking. Distribution centers schedule deliveries with tight timing. Fuel stations depend on frequent resupply. Hospitals operate near capacity during normal conditions. This system works extremely well when everything functions normally. It does not tolerate disruption well. A delay in fuel deliveries affects trucking. A trucking slowdown affects food distribution. Food shortages trigger panic buying. Panic buying accelerates shortages. None of this requires widespread destruction. It only requires interruption. That is the first misconception about collapse. Many people expect dramatic damage to infrastructure. In reality, breakdown often begins with friction, not explosions. Another misconception involves resilience. Modern society can absorb localized shocks. A hurricane can devastate one city while the rest of the country continues operating. Outside resources flow in. Repair crews mobilize. Supply chains reroute. Nationwide disruption changes that equation. If the shock affects transportation, energy, or financial systems across large regions, there is no unaffected area to compensate. Redundancy disappears. Strain compounds instead of dispersing. The appearance of stability depends on constant motion. Trucks must move. Workers must report for duty. Systems must communicate. Confidence must remain intact. When those conditions hold, society looks durable. When participation slows or confidence drops, weaknesses surface quickly. Collapse does not begin when everything fails. It begins when momentum stops. The first visible cracks appear at the consumer level, not because society has collapsed, but because people react faster than systems can adjust. In any serious disruption, information spreads immediately. Social media, group texts, and news alerts amplify uncertainty within minutes. Even incomplete reports can trigger action. Once people believe something may last longer than a few hours, behavior changes. Shoppers buy more than usual. Fuel tanks get topped off. Cash gets withdrawn. Prescription refills get requested early. This reaction does not require confirmed disaster. It only requires doubt. Most grocery stores hold limited backstock. Under normal conditions, steady purchasing patterns allow predictable restocking. Panic buying breaks that pattern within hours. Shelves empty faster than delivery schedules can compensate. Fuel behaves the same way. Gas stations rely on regular tanker deliveries. When drivers rush to fill tanks at the same time, supply drains quickly. Even a temporary interruption can create visible shortages in less than a day. ATMs and banks face similar pressure. Digital systems move money efficiently during stable periods. If customers begin withdrawing large amounts at once, confidence erodes quickly. The financial system depends heavily on trust. When trust weakens, strain accelerates. At this stage, infrastructure may still function. Power may remain on. Communications may still work. Law enforcement may still respond. Yet daily life already feels unstable. That psychological shift matters. When consumers begin hoarding, systems tighten. When systems tighten, more consumers panic. This feedback loop can develop in a single news cycle. None of this means full societal collapse within 24 hours. It does mean that visible disruption can begin almost immediately. Consumer systems move first because they sit closest to public behavior. They reflect fear in real time. Once those systems strain, pressure moves deeper. Consumer panic creates disruption quickly. Institutional strain takes longer, but it runs deeper. Police departments, hospitals, utility crews, and local governments operate with structured staffing models. Under normal conditions, they manage predictable workloads with limited excess capacity. Overtime fills small gaps. Mutual aid agreements handle regional emergencies. Large-scale disruption changes those assumptions. If fuel shortages limit transportation, response times increase. If supply chains stall, hospitals face inventory pressure. If unrest grows, law enforcement stretches thin. If communications falter, coordination suffers. Most institutions depend on personnel showing up consistently. Officers, nurses, line workers, dispatchers, truck drivers, and administrators all form part of the chain. When even a small percentage stay home to protect their families, strain compounds quickly. Hospitals offer a clear example. Many operate near capacity during routine flu seasons. A sustained crisis can push them beyond functional limits within days. Staffing shortages often appear before physical shortages. Law enforcement faces similar challenges. Response priorities shift toward major incidents. Property crime and minor offenses may receive delayed or limited attention. As public perception of reduced enforcement spreads, behavior can change. Utilities often prove more resilient than people expect. Power grids, water systems, and waste treatment facilities include redundancies. Yet those systems still require skilled operators and maintenance crews. If travel becomes unsafe or fuel scarce, repair timelines stretch. Local governments struggle when revenue drops and demand rises simultaneously. Emergency management offices coordinate resources, but they depend on functioning supply chains and cooperative agencies. At this stage, society has not collapsed. However, daily life feels unstable. Services still exist, but reliability declines. Predictability disappears. People begin adjusting their behavior based on uncertainty rather than routine. This stage often determines whether disruption stabilizes or accelerates. If institutions maintain enough participation and coordination, recovery remains possible. If participation declines further, strain moves to the next layer. Physical systems take time to strain. Financial systems can strain in minutes. Modern economies run largely on confidence. Digital transactions move constantly. Banks lend based on deposits. Markets price assets based on expectations about the future. Most money exists as numbers in databases rather than cash in vaults. As long as people trust access will remain available, the system functions smoothly. Confidence can shift quickly. A major cyber attack on financial institutions. A sudden market crash. a government decision to restrict withdrawals, a widespread communications outage. Any of these can trigger fear about access to funds. When enough people attempt to withdraw cash at the same time, banks cannot meet demand physically, not because the system is fraudulent, but because it is not designed for simultaneous liquidation. It relies on normal behavior patterns. Markets behave similarly. Large sell-offs can cascade through automated trading systems within hours. Temporary trading halts may slow panic, but they do not remove underlying fear. Digital payment systems add another layer of vulnerability. If card networks or online banking platforms fail, everyday transactions stall. Even short disruptions can create visible anxiety in stores and gas stations. Financial instability spreads beyond money itself. Businesses rely on credit to restock inventory. Trucking companies rely on fuel purchases and payment processing. Payroll systems rely on electronic transfers. If confidence in the financial layer weakens, operational systems feel pressure almost immediately. This stage often moves faster than institutional strain. People may still have power and water. Police may still respond. Hospitals may still function. Yet if individuals doubt they can access their savings, fear intensifies rapidly. Confidence acts as a multiplier. Strong confidence absorbs shocks. Weak confidence amplifies them. Full societal collapse still has not occurred at this point, but the speed of deterioration increases when financial trust erodes. Infrastructure matters. Supplies matter. Fuel matters. But participation matters more than all of them. Modern society functions because millions of people choose every day to keep showing up. Truck drivers deliver loads. Utility workers repair lines. Nurses report for shifts. Police respond to calls. Warehouse staff move inventory. Clerks open stores. The system continues because enough people believe it will continue. The tipping point does not arrive when shelves empty. It arrives when people decide the system will not recover. If workers believe fuel will return soon, they keep driving. If officers believe order will stabilize, they keep responding. If employees believe paychecks will clear, they keep reporting for duty. When belief weakens, behavior changes. Workers stay home to protect their families. Drivers refuse unsafe routes. Staff shortages expand. Repairs slow. Rumors spread faster than facts. Participation declines further. This shift can move faster than physical damage. Confidence can disappear in hours. Once enough people withdraw from normal routines, systems lose momentum. That is the moment when disruption turns into real breakdown. Not because everything stopped working at once, but because enough people stopped supporting it. Some societies endure severe shocks and recover because participation remains high. Others unravel under less severe stress because trust collapses first. The speed of societal collapse depends heavily on that psychological threshold. Once crossed, stabilization becomes far more difficult. Not all collapse follows the same pattern. Some events strike like a hammer. Others erode foundations quietly. A sudden shock event moves quickly. A large-scale cyber attack. A nationwide grid failure. A coordinated attack on infrastructure. A severe financial freeze. These scenarios disrupt multiple systems at once. Momentum stops abruptly. Consumer panic accelerates strain. Confidence drops fast. In a fast shock scenario, visible disruption can appear within hours. Institutional strain can follow within days. Psychological tipping points may arrive sooner than most expect. However, even in rapid shocks, total collapse rarely happens instantly. Certain systems cling to stability. Local leadership adapts. Communities improvise. Black markets form. Informal networks emerge. Fast collapse feels chaotic, but even chaos develops in stages. Slow collapse looks different. Economic decline stretches over months or years. Inflation erodes purchasing power gradually. Crime rises in certain areas before spreading. Infrastructure maintenance gets deferred. Public trust weakens over time. People adapt slowly to worsening conditions. Normal shifts downward. What once felt unacceptable becomes routine. Slow decay rarely produces dramatic headlines. It produces fatigue. This type of collapse can prove more dangerous in the long term because it lowers expectations gradually. Participation decreases quietly. Skilled workers leave struggling regions. Investment declines. Services degrade unevenly. In slow collapse, society does not fall apart overnight. Fast shocks test resilience immediately. Slow decay tests endurance. Both can end in serious breakdown. The timeline depends on scale, geography, leadership, and public response. A localized shock can stabilize with outside support. A nationwide shock removes that safety net. A slow economic slide can reverse with reform, or it can accelerate if confidence finally snaps. When people ask how fast society would really collapse, the honest answer is that some layers can falter within hours, while deeper structural failure often takes longer. Disruption does not equal collapse. Empty shelves do not equal collapse. Even rolling blackouts do not necessarily mean collapse. Society reaches a true breaking point when core systems lose the ability to recover momentum. That point arrives when several conditions exist at the same time. Supply chains stop moving in a predictable way. Utilities cannot restore service within reasonable timeframes. Financial systems restrict access long enough to erode trust permanently. Law enforcement and emergency services cannot maintain consistent presence. Large numbers of workers withdraw participation. When these layers fail together, recovery becomes difficult because coordination disappears. Communication fractures. Trust evaporates. Informal systems replace formal ones. At that stage, stability no longer depends on institutional repair. It depends on local adaptation. History shows that societies can function at lower levels of complexity. Markets still operate. Trade continues. Communities organize. However, the standard of living changes dramatically. Modern society does not collapse into nothing. It simplifies. The speed of that simplification depends on how many systems fail simultaneously and how quickly participation drops. So how fast would society really collapse? Consumer disruption can begin in hours. Supply chain stress can appear within days. Institutional strain often builds over weeks. Financial confidence can crack almost instantly. Full systemic breakdown requires multiple layers to fail at once. That combination is rare. It is also possible. Modern society is both more resilient and more fragile than most people assume. It absorbs localized shocks well. It struggles when shocks become widespread and synchronized. Preparation does not prevent collapse at the national level. It does determine how exposed you are to its early stages. If shelves empty quickly, your timeline changes. If financial systems freeze, your flexibility shrinks. If institutions strain, your margin narrows. The real question is not only how fast society could collapse, it is how fast you could adapt if it did. Please like the video if it gave you something to think about. Subscribe if you want practical, realistic discussions about preparedness without hype. Share it with someone who still believes society would either collapse instantly or never at all. Preparation starts with understanding how systems actually work. Thanks for watching.